fishing, it's in my soul.
Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
Hello, Salt Strong Nation. Joe Simons, like diamonds. We are back. This is going to be a fun podcast. Here's the quick backstory. My good friend there, Hunter Levine, however you say his last name, Captain's Collective. I had a great talk with him, and he was teasing me about this Skiff Kit and envision being able to have not a done for you, but a little help along the way of here's how to put together your own skiff. I think it's something that most serious fishermen have dreamed of. How cool would it be to build your own boat, right? To envision like having an old farmhouse or a large shed and building your own boat back there. And I was like, that's so cool. I would just have absolutely no idea where to even begin. And so Hunter's telling me that he's working with the Harry Spear on doing something like this. I was like, all right, I got to get Harry on the podcast and talk all about this. And even more so, just talk to Harry about the whole story. I've been digging in really the last week or so, just trying to learn more and more, and pretty fascinating guy. So Harry, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, it's my pleasure. Great talking to you, Joe.
So tell us real quick, in the 30,000 foot view, how did this Spear Boat Works begin? I know you were going to be a professional jazz guitarist and all kinds of stuff. So how did this whole thing happen?
Well, that is a long story. I guess I could summarize it fairly quickly. When I went to college, well, when I was a kid, I was always a good fisherman. I had a knack for catching fish. So that was kind of easy. Music was never easy, but I loved it. And I realized when I went to upstate New York that I was inadequate in many ways. And I didn't like the lifestyle. So that was a long hitchhike from Tampa to upstate New York, then a long hitchhike back to Tampa. And I found out when I got back at the end of the summer, early fall, that my friend Dale Perez was in the Keys guiding, and I just grabbed the rest of my stuff and kept on going south and then never turned back. So that was kind of the way that I got to the great Florida Keys back in the early 70s. It was like dying and going to heaven. But after 30 years of that, it wasn't quite as, how do you say, the shiny rubbed off of it.
Yeah. So were you born in Tampa?
Yes. Yes. Oh, cool. I was born in Tampa General Hospital, and I grew up on Bay Court Avenue, just 2 streets south of Euclid, in between McGill and Bayshore.
Very cool. So I was born in St. Joseph's Hospital, one of the first babies, 1978 in St. Joseph's Hospital there in Tampa. So small world. Yeah.
Tampa's that was a cool place to grow up in, but I couldn't live there anymore. But I'm a small town guy now. But anyway, so when I got to the Keys, I've always been this guy that I'm going to do something, and I'm going to do it. It's just I make up my mind and I do it. And I decided I wanted to build a boat, so I built a boat. And then at the same time, my best friend Steve Huff was building a boat. Neither of us told each other what we were doing. And I said, "Hey, Steve, I built this little skiff." And he goes, "Hey, I just built one too." And mine was an old ragged boat that I rebuilt. His was a brand new super skiff hull that he built. And when I looked at his, I wanted to throw mine away and take his. It was beautiful. He did a phenomenal job on it. And I did a kind of an amateurish job because I'd never done it before. I don't know whether Steve had done any of that before or not. Yes, he had. He kind of custom built a sidewinder hull. So he had more experience in it. But anyway, that was kind of getting my foot into it. And when I left the Keys and moved to North Florida, I kind of had an idea that I was going to still guide some, and I kind of had an idea that I might want to start building boats, but I didn't want to guide, and I really didn't want to build boats. But then 2006, 7, 8 happened, and everything went upside down, and my son Luke, I believe, was about 13 or 14 at the time, and we started a little skiff company in 2008. And I told Luke, I said, if we can ever get any traction starting in 2008, we're going to have something one day.
Yeah.
Well, we do now.
That's so cool. All right. So I'm going to unpack some of that, because you basically said, yeah, I got none of the Keys and I just started to build a boat, and you're probably 20 something years old. So like, how do you even go about that process? Did you come from a family of woodworkers or people who were doing a lot of building of things? Like, to me, it just seems like I would have absolutely no idea where to turn to. Maybe today with YouTube, but back then, like, how did you figure out how to build your first boat?
No, I had absolutely no idea and no skill.
Okay.
But I had determination. I've always been a guy, people have said, you don't know how to do that. You can't do that. And I just say, watch me, because I make up my mind and I do it. So what I did was I looked at, you could see other boats that looked like they were pretty cool the way they were laid out. And, you've already got a shape, a hull, just like anybody who buys one of these kits from me, it's going to be a hull, which is going to be a great hull. That's the best part of what I'm doing. Anybody who does this, they're going to have a really fine base to start with. But back then, I just had some tools, a skill saw, and, measuring tapes and straight edges, and I just cut stuff and then glassed it and put hinges on it, and I made a boat that worked. I guided out of it for a couple of years, that first boat.
Too cool.
It was pretty horrible, but, it worked. What can I tell you?
That is way too cool. All right, so fast forward a little bit. You've built some boats. I know you were a guide. I know you've won dozens and dozens of tournaments. I know you and Steve were. I was big into tennis, growing up, and I just remember, Andre Agassi and Pete Sampras. Those were like, at least during that time, they were the two guys. They always seemed to be fighting for number one and number two. They were always in the championship together against each other. And I feel like that was kind of you and Steve. Is that somewhat correct? Just always kind of there fighting for that number one and number two spot, always at the top.
All right. So for one 10-year stretch, and I can't remember the first year or the last year, but Steve and I, every tournament we competed in, we were first and second. That's true. We were the same dudes.
That's pretty cool.
It was, and I don't know why that was. It was just, we were the right guys at the right time, it's just, there's such a gift in all of that, gift of having that ability, the gift of using it, of being doing what you were really designed to do. That's what I would say about me and fishing. It was just something that I was designed to do. And I was fortunate enough to land in the Florida Keys in the early 70s in the mecca of saltwater fly fishing and flats fishing. And it was just a huge blessing, a great adventure. I look back at it and think of how blessed and how lucky I was to get there, because there's a lot of circumstances that would, that had to fall in place for me to ever get there. So maybe this isn't the time to go through all of that, but it was a great run and I really enjoyed it. But to get on to the boat building, after I built that first skiff, I went to Jack Broyle, who owned Dolphin Super Skiff, and I laid up a hull out of his mold, and then I built the cap for that. This was a couple of years after I built that first little skiff, and then I gave him the cap, and he made a mold out of it. I made him a guide cap for the hull, and he started. I don't know how long he used that, but he did use that as his cap. And then I built a couple of one-off skiffs after I'd helped Scott Deal design that Mirage series, the Maverick Mirage series. And that was just, all we did was we altered a super skiff fairly dramatically, but that was the basis for the Mirage was a super skiff. And then after that, I just said, I'm going to build my own skiff. And then I built 2 one-off skiffs that I guided out of, one for maybe 3 years and one for 5 or 6, 7 years that I guided out of. And they were both, works in progress. I learned from the first one, and then the second one, I did a little better. And then when I came to North Florida, I had that experience. So building a plug to build a mold wasn't that hard. I'd already built 2 one-off skiffs, and all you have to do to build a plug to build a mold off of is finish it really well. Mm. And then you can wax it, and making a mold is all you do is, you're just building a reverse boat. You're laying up something that you might have spent hundreds of hours building. You can make a mold in 20 hours. So,
and what size or back then, were these 17, 18, 19?
They were just, the first boat I built was probably 16 feet.
Okay, got it.
The second boat that I molded was also about 16 feet. And then I built that 120-foot Orca boat, which I sold those molds. I just didn't want to build them. They're too much work. And they're good boat, but I just didn't want to build them. I'm now just built. I've got 3 boats that I'm building. The Legend, which is 16 foot, the Everglades, which is 17.8, and then the Gold Cup, which is more of a tarpon skiff, is 17.4, but it's just a little wider in the ass end, and you can run a 70 on it. So it's a really good guide skiff.
So how many of the bigger companies that we all know today, how many of it sounds like almost all of these were probably influenced by you and Steve in some of this early work, right? There wasn't like a group that was manufacturing skiffs back then. I'm certain, right?
Well, there were some skiffs.
Okay.
There was a Hughes Bonefisher, which was an okay boat. It wasn't a good poling boat by. It was noisy, wet, heavy, and it required a lot of water to pole in. But that was the first really production guide skiff. Bob Hughes made them out of Miami, somewhere in Miami. I'm not sure where his shop was.
Yeah. And
then there was just people had a lot. When I first started guiding, there was just a lot of different boats, and none of them were very good. And this Dolphin Super Skiff was the first really good poling boat, quiet poling boat. And then when Chris Moorjohn and Hal Chittum, designed the Whipray and started Hell's Bay, that was a pretty decent boat. Rode hard, pretty wet, but it poled in shallow water, and it was beautiful finish work. And it was quiet. So that was kind of the beginning of a company who really went after poling skiffs. And so after that, most of the other companies just flipped a Hell's Bay product. Beaver Tail, what's that other one? There's at least one other company that just flipped one of the Hell's Bay products and made a company out of somebody else's design. The only guy, I would say there's 2 guys in the industry that have design experience and I'm not trying to diss Scott Deal, but I don't think that Scott himself is really been involved that much with boat design, but you could ask him. You could do a podcast with him. He's built the most magnificent freaking company.
Yeah. What a.
If you like money, you want to be Scott Deal. But but I chose the artisan route. I'm not a businessman. I don't care to make a ton of money. I just want to try to help advance the sport. That would be my my give back to the industry. I really like making stuff that I haven't. I would much rather you call me up and say, hey, look, I'll give you this much money. Let's build a new one-off skiff, than build one out of a mold. If I can make money doing that, I'd never build a boat out of a mold. I just keep building new stuff and figuring out how to make it better.
Because this is like pure art, right? I mean,
yeah, well, it's artisan. It's craft. I wouldn't call it art. Because how much of art is actually functional? But anyway,
true.
So the other two guys that I kind of got off on a tangent, it's Chris Moorjohn. He, I don't know where he got his. He's a sailboat guy. A lot of his stuff has round chines and stuff like that, which is not good for planing hulls, and it's not good for dryness. But he's built some beautiful boats. And Hal Chittum designed that Chittum skipper. He had somebody design it, but actually came out with something that nobody else designed. He didn't copy anybody.
Yep.
He's done, and I gravitate towards that. To copy somebody else and make money, who cares? To me, that's who cares. You just got a job. You haven't done anything to advance the industry. And I'll stick my foot across the line and just say that. But if you get out there and try to make new things, and there is no boat that I made the first time was the way it ended up. The Low Tide became the Legend. The Glades X became the Everglades. The Gold Cup will become the next Gold Cup. I already want to redesign that. I don't want to make another one. It's a great little boat, but I know I can make it better. So, once you make something, then you can redesign it and tweak it. And that's kind of the fun part of what I do. It's not just building stuff. It's, coming up with better stuff. And the Skiff Kits, I think it's going to be a really cool thing for a lot of people who maybe they have kids, or maybe they just have a dream of doing something like this. And so I'm going to provide those people with a hull and a sole in the bottom of the boat. None of the finish work. I'll provide them with materials if they want them, or no materials. But I've started a YouTube channel, which I really haven't put any content on it yet because we're still filming it.
Yep.
It's Harry Spear, the Art of Skip Building. And everything, all information is going to be free. And we're going to hopefully start a group of people who are interested in doing this stuff, who will post their builds on there. And then we can, as a community, we can look at them, and I'll be available. At least my online presence will be available for advice, and every step that I do in building will be videoed, and it will be segmented, so that if, let's say, you were trying to put a fillet in there between two parts that made a hard angle, and you're going to try to radius that, a fillet is radius with putty. So, just how to do that, how to mix your putty, all of those kind of things will be on there, so that somebody who didn't have a clue, if they can listen and watch and figure it out and then duplicate the move,
yep,
they'll be able to do it. So hopefully, and then I'm going to do, anytime I have a repair, or build any special part. All of that stuff will go on there, so that it will be just a video library for people who want to work on their own skiff, want to maybe remodel a skiff. Maybe they've got a hull that they love, but the interior is turned to crap, and they want to gut it down to the skin and rebuild a really cool skiff. Well, they'll be able to access the information on this YouTube channel, Harry Spear, The Art of Skiff Building, and they'll be able to go on there and figure out how to do it. So I think it's going to be, in the long run, I think it's going to be a really cool information base and a community that will develop. And I'm really happy that I could be a part of something like this.
Yeah, it's brilliant and so cool. And so you're basically providing a proven and a solid hull, and then after that, it's really up to their imagination how they want to build it out. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
Okay.
They could copy something that I've already done or something that somebody else has done. I'm really not concerned about that. I did have a good question asked to me by a guy who's going to buy a kit. He said, is this going to have your Spear Boat Works VIN number on it? And I went, good question. And I thought about it, and I went, it will, but it won't. It'll have on there a K for one of the it's a 12-digit numerical and lettered insignia on the back of the boats. It just tells you when it was built, who built it, in the year, all of these things. So there'll be a K on there so that anybody who buys a boat from somebody who built a kit, they're going to know it was a kit boat. It wasn't built by me.
Got it.
That protects me, and it gives them, without having to go and register go before all the powers that be and jump through all the hoops whenever you built a homemade boat. I'm hoping that it'll work that way. I'm not dead sure. I may be totally wrong. Maybe they'll still have to go have it checked out by the FWC. I don't know, but whatever. It's still, they're going to get a great haul, and they're going to get a lot of experience of doing things that kind of old school way, which is, I never really liked. I mean, I love to look at a boat with all the liners and the finish work that you can pull out of a mold, but it's always a heavier product. And I'm trying to build the lightest, best, hardest working tools. So you just can't have both worlds.
Yes.
You just really can't.
Does the hull come with one of your famous prayers on the side anywhere?
Everything gets prayed over. In Hunter's boat, we wrote, I don't know, there was like 4 or 5 of us that wrote prayers in it. He's got pictures of it. It'll probably be on there somewhere in the website or something along the lines. But yeah, it's fun to do that. A lot of them, I do it, they're hidden. I'll build something and then I'll write something in there, and then I'll fair over it and gel coat it. Nobody will ever see it. I know it's there. God knows it's there.
Yep. I loved it. I watched, that Explorer project with Frankie and you had, it was big, right? It would look like it was in a monster magic marker or permanent marker. And then it looked like you did,
I do all of that with magic markers.
Yeah.
That's one thing I've got to stop by and buy more magic markers. My magic markers are dead.
Well, I'll make sure to put a picture of that, a little screenshot of that video. But it's really neat to see Harry do that, and it was a legit prayer. It wasn't just 1 or 2 words, please God, don't let this boat sink. It was a great prayer, and you could feel that there was a special moment there with you guys just looking at that. That was to me, that was the most powerful part of that whole video and that little documentary. That was really cool.
Thanks.
Yeah, that was neat. So on the kits too, I'm curious, you're not taking them all the way through like electronics and powering the boat up. right? Like this is more about just getting it ready to then go get powered by someone else, or tell me what the ultimate goal is.
Well, there's going to be video on there of rigging also.
Okay.
So, and that can be, you know, some people like to do their own stuff, and some people like to have somebody else do it. But, you know, basically, some of the stuff is transferable. You could do it or have somebody else do it. I like one of the things that Brian Esposito, when he built, he's the first one that bought a hull from me and built it up. Did you see that build he did?
I don't know that I did. We'll get a picture of it and put it in the show notes, though.
Yeah, well, Brian Esposito's got a whole on his Instagram account. He guides out of Fort Lauderdale, and he's built a bunch of one-off skiffs. Very, very crafty guy, and he got a hull, and he took pictures of the whole process of the way he built it. And one of the things that I loved about his build is he used that little low-profile Odyssey battery that comes with a tray, and he fastened it up underneath the rear deck so that you've got no wires hanging down. Everything is, the only wire that comes from down low is the bilge pump wires, and that comes right up and then goes to the battery. So you've got just a super clean area in the back of the boat. And that was one of the things that when I saw that, I said, oh, I'm doing that from now on. So you can learn from anybody, literally. Everybody has ideas, and some of them are really good.
That's what I love about the skiffs I've seen with your name on. I mean, they're clean, they're simple. I know you say strong and dry running and good speed and require minimum horsepower is what's on the website here, and I've heard you say that before. What else have you learned along the way? Like, were there any of those moments, like you mentioned a small one there, about just the wiring, but like, I guess what's changed a lot in this art of skiff building over the years?
Well, certainly I've made a lot of mistakes and learned how to not make them again. For me, I think that honestly, when you're designing and building a skiff, the very most important thing is the bottom, the interface with the water. You can do a lot of things with the sides and the interior and not really change the ride. The other thing would be weight distribution. You know, how heavy is your part and your motor and your people and everything in that. And when you start out with something that's 200 or 300 pounds lighter than its competition, it's just like taking a big guy and not having him in your boat, which is a beautiful thing, you know. And that's one of the things that I strive for: how to cut weight, how to make things super strong, but just not have the excess of material that happens in high production situations.
Yep. So how much lighter are the skiffs you're doing now versus, you know, back when you were 28 years old and first learning?
I have no idea because I never weighed anything back then. The first boat I built was made out of plywood. You know, I mean, it was a glass hull and it was plywood glassed on both sides, and God only knows what that thing weighed. But you know, when you can build a near 18-foot boat and put 200-pound guys in it with a 50 horsepower and almost get 40 miles an hour out of it, you've done something good.
Yes.
You know, you've got something that's pretty cool. Now, Hunter's going to put one of those new 60 Tohatsus on his, which only weighs 8 pounds more. I can't wait to see what that thing does. I'm sure that's going to break 40, probably 41, 42 miles an hour. That's quick.
Yeah.
For, a boat like that. Now, I mean, I don't build racing bottoms. I build boats that will behave well at normal speeds, that you can keep the bow high if you need to, if it's rough. It will keep you dry. It will be quiet when you're poling. That'll spin easily. It will track well. I know how to do all of that stuff. I'm not, I've seen boats that are designed to go fast, and you got to have really sharp edges on them. And, they're doing that new step technology in a lot of the offshore skiffs, where you see that it's breaking the surface tension of the water. So it's, it's creating more air under it, which is a cushion, and just gives you more slip. I haven't tried to do that stuff, really. I don't know whether I will. I don't see what I'm doing that there's any great advantage in it. It's not like you're trying to get an extra 3 miles an hour out of a boat. You're trying to get a boat that fishes well, and there's enough work to try to get a boat to make it fish well.
Well, now, obviously, it's different if you're just a weekend warrior versus a tournament angler where you got real money or even just real pride on the line. How much do you think the boat comes into play? Clearly, you need to be an exceptional angler. And anyone who's in the top 5 or 10, they're all going to be amazing fishermen. In your opinion, what do you think in terms of the importance of the boat? Everything from how quiet it is to how easy it is to pull and turn. What are your thoughts?
I'm not so sure that's a huge slice of the pie.
Yep.
I think the two main ingredients are the guide and the angler.
Yep.
They're how well they work together, how skilled they both are. I think that's by far, when you're talking about tournament fishing, the most important thing. I think you could take the best guide and the best angler and give them a crappy boat and they could still win.
That's what I was hoping you were going to say. So thank you.
But I think there's a certain amount, especially for the guide, the way his boat behaves, how it runs, how dry it is, how comfortable it is riding, how well it pulls, what water he can get into, how fast it is if he wants it to be fast without being hugely overpowered. I think those are most important probably to the guide, is the guy that's living in that boat.
Yep.
The angler is, and the guide, I would say most anglers would go with a guide regardless of the tools that he had, if they had a great rapport and they worked really well together.
Yep.
So, but it is definitely a slice of the overall pie. It plays a certain amount of the role. There's all kinds of things to take into consideration in tournament fishing. Your knots, your tippets, your rods, your reels, your drag, your line, your ability to communicate, especially the guide in the back directing. You're up in the bow, you just hooked a great big tarpon, and the tarpon jumps and your feet's in the line. You can't see it. You're looking at the tarpon, and if your guide is paying attention, he says your left foot is in the line. You got to get it that free. That kind of stuff. That's way more important. Because how many opportunities do you get, and how many of them do you successfully go from beginning to end and win? That's the key to winning tournaments, is not that you have 100 opportunities in a day, but what you did with the ones you had. So that kind of interplay, I would say the guide and the angler, the way they work together and how well they communicate, and how well they pay attention to everything that can go wrong and then not let them go wrong. That's who wins, and everybody else loses.
I love it.
It literally comes down to that. I think it's the 10%, the smallest 10% makes the difference between who wins and loses.
Yep.
Not the biggest 90%. Most everybody can get to some place. Most everybody can pull a boat, see a fish, cast a fly, maybe hook a fish. But what they do, and all of that interplay is the difference. I think the best teams are the guys are really smart, really hard workers. The anglers are really talented, they communicate really well with each other. They know each other. All of that stuff is, whoever the great teams are today, Dustin Huff, Thane Morgan, those guys have fished forever. They're both phenomenal. Guys like that are hard to beat,
Yep.
If you're competing against guys like that, or back in the day when Huff and I were competing, we were really hard to beat. In fact, we didn't get beat.
At least for a decade or so. That's awesome. Yeah, I will say on the flip side, with the normal weekend warrior, my brother Luke, has a Maverick, and I know that's more still a mass produced boat versus your boats, but it is compared to, like, let's just say our good friend's big old noisy bay boat that has a ton of hull slap. I mean, it's night and day fishing in those two boats. And so there is a difference. And you were doing a great job of explaining, tournament guys who all have very similar type of boats, but it is wild how much how much easier it is to sneak up on fish and get into a really skinny area without being detected in my brother's Maverick versus some of these bay boats that a lot of people are using, and nothing against bay boats. They're great and they have a purpose for sure. But it is interesting the advantage a great boat can give to you.
Yeah, it's definitely an advantage, especially, I would say my holes, the greatest advantage is the stealth and the ability to get shallow.
Yep.
And if you pulled, especially the Everglades or the Legend, you just wouldn't believe how easy they are to pull. You can shove either of those two boats balanced out with, weight in the front, weight in the back, in a 10-mile-an-hour wind, and just pulling along easily and glide 30 or 40 feet without having to pull. They go. And we never had that before. It was always, the balance wasn't right. They were stern heavy. So if your stern is even a half an inch lower than the breast of the boat, which should be the deepest part of your boat, if it's a half inch lower, you're pulling with the brakes on at all times. You're not gliding. You want the bow of the boat to be deeper than the stern. If you have that, you get glide, because the stern, the closer the transom, the chines on the bottom get to the surface, the easier it is going to glide over the water. It's just a fact of physics and hydrology. And when you can figure that out, make that happen, you got a tool that when you pull it, you go, holy crap, this is nice.
Well, even just, I've seen your boats like that Legend. It's 16, right?
Yeah.
And some of these guys got 20s on there, and they're still gliding. They're right? You could put little 20 horsepower, and it's still flying.
It goes. I don't know exactly the top end with two people that boat is. I'd say it's about 27 with two people, two medium-sized guys, 180 or less.
Yep.
I'll tell you what it'll do. Luke, the first time he got into it, we were fishing together. It was this winter time. We were fishing, pulling around for redfish and trout, just goofing off. And he got up on the back of this thing and he goes, holy crap, Dad, this thing pulls like a surfboard. You literally, if you were standing in the bow and I got in the back and shoved it hard, your feet would come out from under you. It just goes. It just, it's just easy to pull. You have to be careful with it, honestly, when you're getting used to it. You can't. Whereas some boats you can really push hard on, and the pole will flex, and it takes a moment to break the inertial moment to get the hull really going. Well, that little boat, you shove it and it's going. It's just, there's no real break free. It's just, you put the pole down and push and bang, you're gone. So that's it's kind of like a sports car or a four-wheeler or something like that, more than I don't build Suburbans.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of that, I saw it was in Jupiter Inlet last Monday, and going by, I kept looking at this boat. It was one of those new Hydrosport, the 53 Sueños or whatever, and it had 5 400s on it, and I was just like, "Oh my gosh!" What are your thoughts on all that, and just the way that
I'd say that's ExxonMobil's fantasy.
Yeah, right.
I love offshore fishing, but then again, Luke and I are going to build an offshore boat this winter, and we're going to build. I don't have I don't have an end dimension that I'm looking for. I'm going to build a bottom, and then however it finishes out. I pretty much know what I want the bottom to look like. And I want a 50-plus mile-an-hour boat with a 300 that I can run 50, 60 miles offshore with. And I'm going to build it. So it'll be half or less the weight of anybody else's boat of its size. Probably more like a third. When you use all core, when you build everything, there's no just glass in a mold. This is not going to be molded. This is going to be like a cold molded wood hull, like those fancy Carolina boats that they build in those big wood boats with the flare and stuff, and they cold mold it. They have a frame that they lay the wood around, and then they glass it and do all of that stuff. But it's basically, I'm going to do all of that same process with foam. So foam, a box of foam, a cubic, 8 by 4 by a foot. So let's say if it was 3/4 inches, that'd be, I think, 16 sheets of foam. Weighs maybe like 1.5 sheets of 3/4 inch plywood. 16 sheets does. So when you build out of that, you just already started with something super light, and you don't have to put that many layers of fiberglass on it to get it stiff as a freaking board. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to build a one-off skiff that we can go offshore. We've got great offshore fishing up here. We chum up grouper, and not grouper, but snappers, some yellowtails, but mostly red snapper and mangrove snapper and amberjacks. We've got places where we can just chum them right up to the top and sight fish them. It's so much fun.
And where do you live now? What city?
I don't live in a city. I live in a little hamlet called Sopchoppy. It's like Mayberry. I think there's 114 residences.
Oh, wow.
In this place. And I think it was started in 1840 on the Sopchoppy River. It's south of Tallahassee, about 45 minutes.
Got it.
10 minutes from the Gulf. In the 3-county area that I live in, there's almost 1 million acres of public land.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet.
That is really cool.
Decent fishing, and the 3 counties, I think there's less than 80,000 people that live there.
So is Hunter's dad Chip near you then?
Yeah. Chip lives in Chip lives in, I believe, in Leon County.
Okay.
If it's not, he's in the north end of Wakulla County. But yeah, he's 25 minutes from my house, maybe 20.
Okay, cool.
And Hunter is still living up in town in Tallahassee. but he wants to move down. He loves Sock Choppy. I don't know whether he'll ever move down there. I mean, he's, his ministry he's got an awesome ministry.
Yeah.
God, he's such a cool dude.
Yeah,
and his last name is Levine.
So I had it right the first time.
The first time, yeah. So, yeah.
Makes me feel better.
Yeah, you had it right. Hunter Levine. But great guy. The more I get to know Hunter, the more I like him.
Oh, yeah, he's so solid, and I love what he's doing on the Captain's Collective side, too, putting together just the best of the best and the greatest and just some stories that could live on forever, right? Because there's at some point, there's going to be the next generation, and if no one's telling these stories and documenting them, they're a lot of them will be lost, not all of them. So I think it's so cool.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think that is a really cool thing. Hey, you were telling me before that you wanted to talk about people buying used skiffs and what to look for and things like that.
Yeah. But before we kind of position into the art of skiff building and your channel and the kits, kind of sum it all up. Yeah, I'd love input on that because it comes up all the time in our private insider club. Is, hey, I'm looking to, and especially for new buyers who are like, I'm looking to buy my very first skiff. What do I look out for? What are the mistakes? How do I screw this thing up and make sure I avoid that number one mistake that people regret? So.
Yeah, I think I have a couple of ideas that I think would be useful for anybody who's buying a used boat. There are certain brands of boats that people like, and there are certain brands of boats that people don't like. And I would say, there's some that are popular and some that aren't popular. I would definitely buy something that is popular, and I'll tell you why. Because if you want to sell it, you're probably going to be able to sell it and not take a huge bath. If you buy the wrong boat, you can, most people don't keep boats for a long time. So the idea is to buy something that'll do the job that you want to do, and that's up to the person. And I think they should really reflect, what are they trying to do with their boat? What is the point of having this boat? Is it just run around and go to the sandbar and drink beer? Am I trying to redfish and snook fish? Am I tarpon fishing? Am I trying to have a family boat that I can do all of this stuff? You got to figure out what you want. Try to find something that's popular. Like, for example, a bay boat that's popular. Pathfinder. I think that may be the most popular. Yeah. I'm not sure of that, but you see a million of them.
I think you're right.
It's a pretty darn popular boat. So if you bought one of those, you probably could get rid of it and not lose a ton of money if you took good care of it. And I think that's the main thing. If you buy a boat, to really take care of it. Make sure you wash it well, you keep it up, you don't let things deteriorate on it. And if you can do that, you're not going to lose a lot of value. And it'll be nicer for you when you do get in it. But as far as picking those, what brands to buy, I wouldn't really know that. I would just say pick the stuff that's popular and then try to get stuff that's not been too buggered up. When some people buy stuff and then they start putting crap on it and they screw things on it, I would buy the simplest things with the least fixtures on it as possible.
AKA the least amount of extra holes in it that who knows who was drilling. And when people start, you've got bow rails, you've got this, you've got ladders, you've got all of these things on these boats. They might be nice, but all of that crap, the screws come out, they rust, they do this and that. If you can get something that's simple and spare, when you look at it, it just looks like the boat, the motor, and the console, and you've got something clean and simple, I would say that would probably be
serve you better and will be a lot easier to sell than stuff that's got stuff all over it. I see boats, I look at them and I go, it's like climbing into a pigsty. They just got so much crap on them. But I like simplicity. So I'm biased in things being spare, not having a lot of extras. I don't want anything on my boat that I don't have to have. If you didn't have to buy it, you didn't have to pay the money for it. You don't have to maintain it, and it can't break.
That's great advice.
Those things right there are strong words that I take very seriously when I'm dealing with a boat. I talk people out of stuff all the time. No, you don't want that. You really don't want that. So, yeah.
That's great. So besides the obvious, we're still on this used boat thing, checking out the motor and just the obvious cosmetic things that you can see, the hull is something that I think most average weekend warriors and new boaters they wouldn't even know what to look for. Is there anything in particular that you're looking for in a hull in terms of how it's made, or any kind of inconsistencies or anything that just looks off? Is there anything that comes to mind that you like, some of the first things that you would look at?
I tell you, here's what I do. If I were going to go out and buy a used boat, I would go online and like on microskiff.com, I look at forums about that boat.
Mm-hmm.
I would look at what people say that's good about it, what people say that's bad about it. And if you can find a boat that people mostly say, I really like this boat, then it's probably been manufactured pretty well. There are some companies, I'm not going to mention any companies, that do a horrible job. And, people should avoid them at all costs. But most boats look good when they're first built. They come out of a mold. They could be done the cheesiest crap on the other side of what you're looking at. It's like a house, that's well built. The thing that's most important about a house is its foundation and the structure that you never see once you're living in the house.
Yep.
All the framework and stuff inside of it. Well, the same with a boat. It's the stuff that you can't see. And if I tell you, a friend of mine has an offshore skiff that I will mention the company's name because I love his boat. It's a Whitewater 28.
Okay.
The guy whoever designed that boat, I hope he hears this, because his idea of simplicity, how he laid out the interior of that boat, how well it works, and how clean that boat is. It's beautiful. I love it. It's. I don't think it's perfect because I don't think there's any perfect boats, but you can see that the guy that designed this thing knew what he was doing. He made it to work. And I can't tell somebody else what to look. If they were just looking for a fishing skiff, I could tell you. But, that's not all your audience. You've got people who are, want a family boat that maybe go fishing sometimes. I check the forums, who likes what and who doesn't like what, and stay away from the stuff that people don't like. Does that make sense?
That's excellent advice.
Because I know if I'm buying, if I'm going to buy a new vehicle, I'm online. Put the engine. What engine do I want? That's what I'm looking for most of all. The engine and all the stuff. Is there inherent problems in this thing? Does transmissions go bad? I don't want it. Is it a good engine? Is it economical? I want it. So I think you can do the same things with I haven't ever done it with boats, but I'm sure you can do it. And it wouldn't take a lot of time to kind of get an idea of where you want to go.
Yep, I love it. Super helpful. All right, for the adventuresome, the men, the guy, the gal who just wants to get their hands dirty, and I think you kind of mentioned it offline when we were talking. You're really creating memories that you're never going to forget in terms of building your own skiff, which is what I'm intrigued by it. talk about that. Like when is this happening? When you mentioned, you've already sold one, or kind of, it sounds like maybe sold one, or having someone kind of go through it. What's the timeline on both the YouTube and the ability to get these skiff kits?
All right. So let me start with why I think it's a very cool thing. Mm-hmm. So whenever somebody says to themselves, I'm going to do this, and they go ahead and do it, and regardless of the outcome, there's something about the journey of building something with your own hands that you can look back on, and you're probably never going to build anything that you look back on and say, I did this perfectly. I've never done it. I mean, I'm very proud of some of the boats I build and most of the boats I build, but I can look at every one of them. They're just like human beings. Have you ever seen a perfect human being? I haven't. Nope. Somebody's got a crooked this or got a freckle there, or, one finger's crooked. I mean, there's something in everybody that's just a flaw. Well, every boat that I build has multiple flaws. They're working tools. So if you go with the idea is I'm going to do something myself and build something that I can use and enjoy, it's what I'm doing is I'm selling an opportunity to that person to start with a great hull. So they know that the thing that's going through the water is going to work well. And then they're going to have the opportunity to go on a journey and have this experience that they can relive and think about and enjoy for the rest of their damn life. If they do a good job, that boat will last. So, I think it's a very cool thing. I don't care what you're doing, whether you're building a little shed in your backyard or a barbecue pit or a fire pit, or, you're repainting a porch swing, anything that you're doing that you can say, I did, I think it's cool. So for the people who start doing this, in another couple of years, we should get back and go over the people that have done it and what their reactions are. And because I think it's going to be a really cool thing that's going to catch on with a lot of probably fairly young people. I don't think it'll be too many people my age that are going to be doing it, but the guys that are in their 20s to maybe up to 50 that are, in that kind of middle part of life where they want to accomplish stuff, they still got plenty of juice to do it, they're going to do it.
Yep.
And they're going to do some really cool stuff. There's going to be some guys or girls, there's plenty of women that could do this stuff too, because it's not physically that hard of work. It's dirty work, some of it. When you're grinding stuff, it's dirty. But as far as it's not super heavy, it's just work that it requires good hands. It's sort of like a cross between being a seamstress and a baker. If you know how to cut stuff, patterns, if you can cut material like a seamstress has to cut everything. Bakers, I use a lot of baker's tools, spatulas, frosting bags for squeezing on fairing compound and stuff in joints. There's a lot of similarities between things that you would think were very dissimilar. They're not.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. It is pretty cool. The whole thing has been a great journey that I've been on, and I just am a creative guy, so I hope there's never a day in my life that I say I don't want to create something. I'm all about it. It's just whatever the next thing is, I love doing it.
When you do a fantastic job. So when, what are you thinking on the date? When, is it going to be off your site, the Spear Boatworks site, or where is it going to be?
The YouTube channel is going to be its own entity. It's going to say Harry Spear, the Art of Skiff Building.
Okay.
We are almost done. to start it. It should be, I would say, mid-September. It will be up. I've already got a half a dozen people that want kits, and I told them to just kind of chill out until I get the channel up, because I don't want to have somebody call me and go, "What's the next thing I do?" That's not going to be the way this thing plays out.
Yep.
I mean, if somebody is really stuck between a rock and a hard place, I'd be glad to help them out. They can send me an email, and if I feel like it, I'll call them up. But I don't want to, I don't want to babysit. I'm going to have this all on the YouTube channel. Every process will be, you'll see video, you'll see timeline photographs, and then I'll have the audio behind it. So I'll sit down with Hunter when we do it, and I'll do the audio. I'll explain what I'm doing, what you need, how to do it, blah, 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 blah. And then the video will explain itself. So that doesn't mean that everybody will get it. I might not articulate it the best. And I'm sure that over time I'll go back over stuff and redo it to make it more understandable. So it's going to be, just like anything, a process that will be refined over time, but it's going to be a wealth of information for somebody who wants to do this kind of stuff. I don't know. I know Chris Moorjohn sells some kind of kits. I really haven't paid that much attention to it. I know he's doing something. And Chris he's like me. He's an artisan and an artist. Yep. He's got to be creating stuff. He's never going to be happy not creating stuff, which is a beautiful gift to have.
Oh, yes.
It's just it's a beautiful lifestyle to guys that make knives, that make bows, that make guns, that make furniture, anything. Build houses, do custom woodwork. I don't care what it is. I'm into all of it. If I see something and I go, I want one of those, I say, how much does that cost? I'm going to do it myself.
So speaking of that, have you picked a price point for the kit yet?
Yeah. And what I will do is, is this your mobile?
This is my Skype, but I can offline. I can text you my mobile.
Yeah, you give me your mobile. I will text you all the information that I have so far on my Skiff Kits, the prices, and then just what I'm going to offer on the YouTube channel. And that will it will get added to as time goes on. Like I said, it's all going to be a process that is amended over time and made better. That's what I hope it will be. And as long as I can still kick around and do this stuff, I'm going to do it because I'm enjoying it.
Well, I can tell, and your work is amazing. Everyone I've ever heard talk about your skiffs are just beaming with just excitement. I mean, everyone just loves it, and golly, just so clean, so smooth. And I'm really pumped about this Skiff Kit. I don't know that I'm going to be the first person to buy it just because of where I am in life, but I still have a 3-year-old that's still in diapers. But I think shortly after things will get a little bit better, and I would love to try that out. I think it would be a cool thing to do with my kids and the family, and even if it takes me a couple of years, who knows, with life going on, I think that would be such an accomplishment, and that would be really, really cool.
Well, I want to throw something out at you. There's no way that it would take you a couple of years to do.
Yeah, I was being a little sarcastic, but
well, that can scare people off. This is something that you can do in 3 or 4 weekends, real easy. You can do the build work on your boat. If you're handy and you have a place where you can leave your stuff, it's really important to have a covered place.
Yep.
That's covered and dry. You can't do this work out in the sun. Foam and resin and with catalyst in it, hate sunshine. It'll just fire off. It'll bend your foam. It'll do everything bad. You know, you want to do it inside. It doesn't have to be air conditioned, but you want to be out of the sun, direct sunlight, and, you know, with ventilation, with a good fan, you know, to keep the fumes off of you and the dust off of you. But other than that, it's something that, you know, it's not rocket science. It's more, the first guy that I'm getting a kit to is a homeschool dad who's got 4 kids. They've homeschooled their kids all the way through, just like my wife and I did with our kids. And he wants to do this with his family. And I think that to me is just like the ultimate gift that you could give me, to let me do something for a family that they can do together. And that this should be family project. It shouldn't be just one guy doing it, unless he's just wants to build one for himself. He's just a flats fisherman. He wants to do it. But the guys who have kids that are old enough to just be a part of it, they don't have to do the work, but just to be a part of it and, you know, help Dad. Can you hand me this? We are building this boat together. You know, that let them have the same energy of their part of it. That, I just think that's huge, awesome.
So I'm hearing you basically say, Joe, you don't have any excuse just to shut up and just do this.
No. You gotta have your kids have to. It's got to be something they want it. You can't make them do it. It's got to be something that you say, hey, do you guys want to do this? And if your wife and your kids say, or even one of your kids or your wife say, yeah, this would really be cool, then it's a good thing. If it's just a selfish thing for you, maybe it's not time yet. Yep. But, you know, maybe your boy, when he's 10 years old, he's going to go, Dad, you know, I heard about this spearboat skiff kits. Can we build one? And you're going to go, yeah. We can do it.
Yeah, and just so you guys know, in that Explorer project, you basically went from scratch and did it like in 6 days or something. So, I mean, it does not.
No, we did it in 3 days.
3 days. Okay. Yeah, that was pretty crazy.
3 days.
Yeah.
But that's what you can do building a one-off skiff. And I do it all the time. I love building one-off skiffs similar to that, but not necessarily. I mostly build these little glade skiffs that guys use in the no motor zone and stuff that you can pole in 3 inches of water, and they weigh like 150 pounds. And I can build one start to finish and work in 2 hours a day. I can do it in 10 days. I can do it in about 20 hours. I can build the coolest little boats, one-off skiffs. They're just so much fun to build. And that's another thing that will eventually get on the YouTube channel, how to actually do that. I've gone from really complicated to really simple, how to make a boat with no paddles, just doing it. And it's not that hard, but that's down the road a little ways, but that'll happen.
Very cool. Well, Harry, this has been awesome. Everyone, please go to YouTube, and we'll put a link in the show notes, and go to The Art of Skiff Building, and you can probably just YouTube it or Google it, whatever, with Harry Spear, and you'll see that. Subscribe. You'll start seeing a lot of these videos populating on there soon, and check out these skiff kits. And I know at spearboatworks.com, he's got all of his skiffs that he's currently making and made in the past. It's just, you got to go. If you haven't seen them, just go look at them, and you'll understand when we keep mentioning the word just clean and simple, and still elegant, and just awesome fishing boats, skiffs. It is a really, really cool site. So spearboatworks.com. Anywhere else? Anywhere other social media and Instagram and Facebook and all that great stuff?
Yeah, I have an Instagram page that Hunter does, and I think that's also Spear Boatworks, but I'm not sure. That's not my forte. But hey, Joe, I want to thank you so much for having me on your show and letting me visit with you about what I'm doing. It's been an honor and a great pleasure. And to your audience, I look forward to hearing from you one day. And thank you very much.
Yeah,
appreciate you.
Thank
Blessings.
you. Thank you for everything that you've done for the industry. And I love your mindset of just always wanting to create and keep kind of pushing and creating and figuring out what else you can build. So keep it up, my friend. And anyone who's interested in this at all, I'm dying to see some of these first skiffs that are completed from the kit. I know, just like anything, once you have a couple of case studies of someone else doing it and going all the way through, I think you're going to sell a lot of these things, and it's going to bring a lot of cool memories to people. So,
well, the first thing that people can do to look at the first kit boat built was Brian Esposito. If you go to, and that's Esposito, Brian Esposito, you can go on his Instagram page, and he's got it posted, his build, and it's fascinating. He did a phenomenal job. So that's the potential of what you could do. I mean, he did literally, I couldn't have done it any better. Promise you. And I built a lot of boats, but Brian is a great artisan, and he's built a lot of one-off skiffs, and he did this fabulous. So that would be, that will definitely be on my YouTube channel when we get that thing going, because Brian is the first one, and he built a phenomenal boat.
All right, I'm putting a note down to go check out his Instagram page, and we'll get some of those pictures. So awesome, thanks, my friend. Brother. This has been a blast, and we'll definitely have to have you back on in the future and talk about some of the skiffs that have been completed.
All right, my brother. I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Harry.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
'Cause fishing, it's in my soul. It was passed down to me from the days ago. Find us on the water if there was a way. It's been said my papa, he wrote the book on catching big reds and 20-pound snook. I wish I knew all the things he knew today. For he's the reason why we are this way. And he put fishing in our soul.